Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well. Today I am so excited because this week is going to finally be the week that I finish this never-ending painting series. No, but in case you forgot, like 3 months ago I said that I was hoping to have this done in a week's time, and it's 3 months later now. But I'm finally at the end point. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm on piece 9 of 9, which is what I'm mostly going to be working on this week. And then I finally get to see all 9 of them together, which this has been like a year plus in the making. So I am so excited to see what this extremely lengthy project looks like finished. Like, I didn't actually realize, because originally it was going to be 8, which technically it still would have been the largest art project I'd like ever undertook in terms of pieces. My largest painting series to date right now was only 6, so the 8 would have done it, but 9 is definitely making this the longest one, not even just in the number of pieces, but the complexity of each one. But I know a lot of you are excited to see this completed project, and I know I am definitely excited to have this project finished and out there into the world, and that is what this video is going to be. Although I am planning on doing another video that has to do with basically how to go about creating a cohesive painting series, since I have just hopefully succeeded in that concept. But I know I have worked on this painting series and shown it off in multiple videos at this point, and somehow I have barely even talked about the like specific logistics towards everything, which this piece is quite fitting because number 9 is the artist character, which is essentially why a 9th got added, because I couldn't not spend a year plotting a painting series and then not include the painter in the series. Today I am sure I'm actually going to go into the logistics of the specifics about the painting, but the rest I'm gonna have to do an entire video on because there's just too much stuff. Like 9 paintings that have like every single thing in each one is there for a reason, and just the entire idea of like making good creative decisions and things, that's going to be its own lengthy video special, I'm sure. But now that I've rambled on forever in this intro and hyped up this painting so much, let's actually get on into the painting. First, before we get too much into this painting, I just wanted to say that if you had any questions regarding this painting series in particular, or painting series in general, then please leave those in the comments and I will make sure to answer those or discuss that in the upcoming video about how to go about creating your own painting series. But yeah, let's actually talk about this painting. So starting off, how I've been doing all of these, which is sketching them on my iPad digitally and then just printing them out on an 11x17 sheet of, it's literally just normal printer paper basically, and then I'm transferring that onto the actual watercolor paper using transfer paper. Also, before we get even further into this, I'm possibly going to be discussing some like low-key season 10 American Horror Story spoilers, so this is your warning, although I'm sure pretty much anything that I might mention isn't going to like ruin the overall plot or anything of the season if you are someone that's like paranoid about spoilers, but just wanted to give that warning here. So anyway, if you haven't seen the first part of season 10 of American Horror Story, the season essentially revolves around a town with a bunch of people that have creative jobs or interests. Like, the whole place is crawling with creative people, and in this particular season, Sarah Paulson's character happens to be the painter, which unfortunately worked out very well for me in this painting series, which is why this 9th piece got added. So this is Tuberculosis Karen, which I am aware is an unfortunate nickname, I guess you could say, for a character. And she is, of course, like I mentioned a million times in this video, a painter. At this point, because this literally is the last piece, I had not necessarily created rules for myself for each piece, but obviously there were 8 other ones that I needed this to look like it belonged with. And I think I saw somewhere where someone had like itemized everyone's screen time and stuff, and this character exists for like roughly and or less than 20 minutes in the season, so that was not a whole lot of time to work off of to, you know, figure out the design elements that I was going to need to incorporate to make, you know, like all the other ones have, like some of them have buildings, which I basically blacklisted off the final row, so like 7, 8, and 9, couldn't have a building so that they all looked like they belonged in the set of 3. All kinds of stuff like that. So this was interesting to figure out a goal plan that would fit this character, but that would also work with the rest of the series. So the one thing that I had going for me, other than her being an artist and me knowing somewhat about that, you actually see a reasonable amount of her paintings, which she's supposed to be mostly a landscape painter, specifically an oil painter. I know this is like, let's talk about the like extreme logistics and stylistic choices of a fictional character. But that was like the main thing that I had going for me for this character for pretty much the whole thing. I got really hopeful and excited because at one point in the season, she's supposed to have painted like her masterpiece of her lifetime or whatever. And I thought, oh, perfect. We can recreate this and put it into the painting somehow, like incorporate it. It's going to be great and meaningful. It's going to be a wonderful way to end the season off. And then they never actually show you what the finished masterpiece looks like. So the plan for this was, because, you know, that was nerve-wracking to say the least, because I thought I was good and ready to go with this whole concept, and then they never showed it. But the one good thing is you do actually know, presumably, what she was planning on painting, which is this lighthouse and, like, I guess, side house beside it. This lighthouse does actually exist, and they do actually use the real lighthouse for what they claim it is, I guess you could say. Like, it's Race Point Lighthouse, and in the show they are not naming it something else, like it's supposed to also be Race Point. So that was very helpful to be able to, you know, find reference pictures and things like that. So that was sort of the beginning point of this painting concept, that I knew I had to include what was supposed to be her masterpiece, or attempt to create something that would look like her masterpiece, which thankfully she was like a realistic oil painter, so it's not like I had to do some like crazy impressionism, like modern art thing that would have just blown my mind to attempt to do probably. So the painting point was all fine and dandy as a concept, but obviously these paintings are pretty contained within themselves. They have border elements, all of these other design elements. Obviously I had to put her into this painting somehow, while also having like another painting in the painting inception going on here. And so I essentially thought, why don't I just turn the whole thing into a painting? So I put this, yes, it's a pretty simple frame, but it is based on a frame that you see one of her paintings in the show, which is why it is so simple, or just, it is technically specific, but it is simple on purpose. And at some point I realized there is a pretty important, prominent beach scene. I'm not going to go into the I know I said I was going to spoil things, but we won't go into the details of that. But there's a pretty important beach scene for this character, and I just happened to realize that the color of the clouds in like the one screen cap that I was looking at, that I thought would be pretty cool to incorporate into this somehow, I realized that it was pretty much the same color as her coat, I guess you could call it. And so I decided on this fading gradient body. Basically the bottom silhouette of her transforms into a landscape, and it does so very easily because of the coat being the same color as the clouds in the one reference photo that I wanted to use. So that is how we got to this design concept. Now let's talk about this hat, because this hat nearly killed me. I know if you follow me on like other social medias, you will have probably gotten sick of me complaining about this, but I knew obviously the hat was going to take a while because it's knitwear and there's lots of detail, but honestly, I think like 40 to 50% of the entire time I spent on this painting was just on the hat. And I did not bother to film 90% of it because it took way too long. So that's why you have this giant cut of going from like, hat to wow, that's a knitted hat. I also did a lot more work on the face too, which I did off camera because I like taking my time and I build things up so slowly that you just pretty much cannot tell that I've done anything on camera, so it's unfortunately like not worth me filming. But here I am finally working on the landscape portions, which I knew that I wanted to do what was supposed to be like the actual painting portion, which is the lighthouse, in a different medium. So I pulled out my gouache palette. Like, I wanted to try and emulate and have it looking a little more like oil paint. If, you know, this was supposed to be one of her paintings, I was not about to bust out the oil paint for this, but I was down to try and have it look something more along the lines of oil. So gouache is obviously more opaque, and I figured I could get that slightly more painterly look. Like, I could go in with white gouache places if I needed to lighten things up, and just it being a more opaque medium, I figured it would definitely probably stand out a little more from her because it was just a different medium, and that was my hope. So that's why I pulled that out. I wasn't being like particularly set on only doing every single element of these series paintings in watercolor. There are a few that have some different mediums, like some of them have more fine liner than others. All of them have like the black pencil that I've been using, which is like a Staedtler carbon something. It's just a very black, nice pencil, which you will see me use eventually. But yeah, there's definitely different ones. Like, all of them tend to have white gouache somewhere on it just to sharpen up highlights and things, but this one has significantly more gouache just for the landscapes because I figured that would look nice. I actually wasn't quite sure what to do with this beach scene because it's not necessarily supposed to look like she painted it, so it didn't necessarily need to be out of gouache, but it is also a landscape, so it wouldn't have looked unusual if it did look a little more painterly. So I kind of haven't it. I did like a watercolor base, and then I do think I did sort of detail a few things up with some gouache just because it was the right color that I had like mixed up beside me. Which, speaking of color palette, all of these three elements, the screen cap of her, this beach, and the lighthouse, are all supposed to be from like the same place and basically the same scene, so they were pretty much all of the same color, including her. So for this one, I actually ended up editing the screen cap that I was using for reference to try and make her look a little more human and lifelike. Like, she is still kind of an unusual color. It does look appropriate for, I guess, the color scheme of this painting, but it was even more weird of a color, like very gray, which I know there's a lot of gray in the shadowing on the face, and, you know, it does look appropriate. It's just when you see that on its own and actually take into account the colors that you're using, it does seem a little unusual. Which, speaking of the portrait color, I don't think this has actually come up in this video, but this character is supposed to be homeless, and she has like lots of, I don't want to say scars, but she on her own, regardless of cinematic coloring, is slightly, her makeup is a bit strange. I mean, my mom came in and saw that drawn on eyebrow and she's like, what is that? Which that is literally what it is. She has bleached eyebrows and then a drawn one over top, which is unusual enough on its own, which it does look like that, I promise you. But I didn't know how far to go with the, I guess, discoloration in the face. Obviously, it's supposed to be quite a cold and windy, dreary scene, so obviously there would be more redness on the face, presumably. Anyhow, there was just, I didn't want to like face tune her, but also I didn't want to make her look like too rough, so I do think I had a good balance of still looking like the character, but not making her look worse than necessary, if that makes sense. I'm sorry, I'm really throwing this character under the bus. It's a great character though, it's just when you look at Sarah Paulson as this character compared to all of the other ones, you don't want this one to look crazy compared to the rest. I'm just gonna stop talking now before I dig myself into a deeper grave. At this point, I am just essentially doing the finishing touch-ups on the landscape, which this actual painting landscape portion, I didn't want to look too in focus. Like, obviously, this is giving the impression, I guess you could say, that this character is in front of this scene, which is not necessarily its original intention, but I also don't hate that idea. So I didn't want the landscape behind her to look too in focus so that it looked weird. You know, when you have something in front of a background, the background tends to be less in focus. So I did take that into account, other than I did want it to look a little more painterly and just not as perfect, which is why I tried very hard not to like perfect things too much and just really let my painting process still be visible. For the rest of her and this beach scene, I did really clean it up and try and make it look super realistic, but I tried to be a bit looser with the background painting because I did want it to still look like a painting, or I guess give off the impression that visibly it looks more like a painting. You guys, I'm done. Like, done. I've also apparently decided to impersonate the Law & Order sound effect. But yeah, the final one is actually finished and sitting in front of me, and I honestly can't believe I have made it this far. No, but really, like, it took me so long to actually start these that I didn't actually think I was ever going to start them, not to mention actually finish them. But we are here, and here is what the finished one. There we go. Camera adjustment, since you know there's a million studio lights on. But yeah, it is finished. I'm very happy with how this one turned out, considering this was definitely one of the more challenging ones, considering I did not have a whole lot to go off of. But yeah, I'm gonna get the tape off of this, and then I guess we can look at all 9 of them. I almost said 8. It's 9. I'm glad I know how many I've spent the last 3 months on. Well, here we have like the most important 9 pieces of paper in my life, which yes, this is only 9 sheets of paper because it's crazy thick watercolor paper. But yeah, I have never seen them all together, and I can't really see them all together because these paintings are quite large, and so I definitely do not have room anywhere to just lay them all out and look at them. And I also actually haven't seen most of these in quite a while. Like, they got shoved into my closet for safekeeping and have not been seen or looked at since, so hopefully I don't despise the first ones. I also have not taken a picture of any of these except this one because I posted it for I think the 10th anniversary of when American Horror Story first started. I decided to, you know, let the first one go out there into the world even though the series wasn't finished yet, which I might take another picture of this one. I'm not sure. We'll see. I just might take another one in case I like do different settings on my camera or something, just so that they're like all uniform. But yeah, I have a lot of picture taking to do today as well. I guess let's take a look at all of these. I have no idea what the best way to show you all these are, so we're going with the possibly Mickey Mouse option of me just holding them up to the camera and hoping it looks okay. But we have the first one, which is Murder House. Second is Asylum with its 70, 90 windows. I did count them one time because I wanted to see what torture I had subjected myself to. Coven, Freak Show, Hotel, Roanoke, Cult, Apocalypse, and finally Red Tide. But yeah, I guess I'm going to go now photograph all of these so that I can start, you know, editing the photos, essentially getting them all prepped for prints and just, you know, making them look good digitally. Not that I really do much, like they're gonna get cut out. Like I'm gonna remove the sheet of paper essentially, and I did for this one make it a different color, which was sort of the original plan, but it's just a lot easier to do that digitally, which is why they're just all on white in real life. So I need to figure out what color they're all going to be on as well. I can't believe I'm finished, and you know, overall the look through, there's nothing that I'm like, well, that one does not look like the rest, so thankfully that is the case. And yeah, I'm gonna get my camera rolling. Pictures are done, and this is obviously not all of them, but I was trying to get a thumbnail picture, and this is what I could fit on my desk, and I just had to share it because they look just so cool together, and it's so cool to see them all finally finished and side by side. So yeah, I just had to show you what my desk is looking like at the moment. But my plans for the rest of the day are just to edit all of these photos and spend some quality time with the lasso tool in Photoshop. Here it is, the finished Queen of Horror Story painting series. These will be available on my Redbubble as well as a print set in my own store, so if you are interested in any of that fun stuff, the links to that will be in the description box. But thank you for sticking by me and cheering me on over the last 3 months that I've been working on this, and that's going to be the end of this video. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one.